Okay, so this one came through last night. Micah, we'll have a quick look at that and then we'll dive into some other stuff. I have a quick question about the job ad that I'll be posting next week. Do you think it's a good idea to include a tentative salary in the job ad? The answer is yes. You want to give a salary range based on experience. So yeah, don't pigeonhole yourself, but just give a range that looks, obviously you're never really going to get someone into your business at the top end of that range. It's going to be sort of lower to middle of the range, but certainly, once I think I've told you, I hired a general manager who was like, spin my head around, unbelievable, can't believe you want to work for my business. I'd paid the previous one about 65 grand and he was getting about 95. So he came in right at the top range. He was well worth the money. So yeah, definitely give yourself a range. Do you think it's a good idea to have each applicant send in a short video when sending their CV? 100%, absolutely. Yeah, I never did that myself, but I think it's a great idea. We did other things whereby we did an initial group interview for a couple of different roles, which worked really, really well in a group environment. People found that as intimidating as anything. It's really great to see people come into a room. You have to structure it, obviously. But if you're, it could be for a tour guide, it could be for an admin or an office assistant role, but to have 6 or 7 applicants come into a room together, leave them there for a little while before you start the meeting, see how they interact. And when they get going, see how, because I'm always about personal skills on personal attributes and characteristics rather than specific skill set. So you wait and see how people in that room, because it's a really intimidating environment, people are super nervous, and you wait and see how they encourage people and make people feel comfortable around them that are ultimately competing with for a role. Those things are amazing. So anyway, that could be a different angle, and also it shaves off so much time involved in the process to get people to do an interview, one like a group interview. But yeah, definitely a video I think is great. See how they, especially if it's for a tour guide role, 100%.
Exactly.
They're entertainers, yeah. See how they perform in front of a camera. Is it stilted? Does it come naturally? Yeah, great. If anyone's got some thoughts or ideas, jump in by all means. Do you think it's how do I present their job perspective? The tourist season tends to be only 6 months and a job would be seasonal. What I've always said, don't anticipate what people aren't going to want to do. Does that make sense? So for every person, you might be sitting there with a negative mindset that says, who's going to want to work for my business when it's only 6 months a year? Get clear on what you want and then go and find those people, because for every person it's like, oh, that's not going to work for me. What am I going to do for 6 months of a year? There's another person who's saying, oh my God, this is perfect because I want to travel with the family for 6 months. Or I want to do this, or my wife's in, whatever it is. So if you're clear on what you want, you will find people that want to fulfill that role for you. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So yeah, that's don't think, oh, I want to reframe it because I don't think people are going to want to do that, or that's not going to suit a lot of people. You go hard at what you need in your business and you wait and see what happens if you're really clear on that. Okay. I don't have any training materials or systems in place. If I hire someone next week, what would you suggest I start working on? Well, it's all there in the program. So the first thing, like not talking about, commentary or actual on tour related things, but you've got a training agreement template.
Yes.
Your expectations. So that's an obvious one. In that training agreement, the first section is documentation that's required of you, of them, for them, of you, and of you for them. Does that make sense? So, they're going to need to provide you with like police checks, maybe, or working, working with children or whatever it is. They're going to need to provide you with some sort of certification or whatever it is that you need from them. But then you're going to want to provide obviously training, but have you got like a regional, a training manual of commentary, interesting stories and facts and things about your tours, profiles of the vendors and suppliers that you use so they can start you know what I mean? Like there's so much training that can be done outside of just, so if you haven't done those things, it's a really great idea to start getting that stuff out of it, getting it into a document. Okay.
Yeah. So if I have 5 tours, would you suggest that I train that person or persons getting in to do all the thing all the time, or is that too intimidating? Because I have like 5 different tours with all a whole one bunch of information that maybe it's
That's
not that
okay.
easy.
Start with, so like I ran 20 different tours. I always started with the things that could, so I like a Melbourne City sites, a Melbourne City tour, because that was common, regular. It was a short, sharp tour. It would make training easier. There wasn't like traveling to out to regions. So that was an obvious one. I usually started with 2. Okay. I got people to perfect 2. And once they had them dialed in, then we expanded. So I would think about the most popular tour you do, the one that's most involved, the one that, you can use them. It's common sense. What do you sell most of? Get them trained up in that so they can deliver that to an elite level. And then, so no one wants to be overwhelmed trying to learn 5 different tours. Okay.
That's what I would figure. Yes.
Again, anyone's got some different ideas or thoughts on that, by all means, jump in.
Okay. All right. Well, that sounds like pretty good to work with. Now, as for the tentative salary, so if I talk to fellow tour operators and the going salary is between that I would think, that is just ridiculously, almost offensively low, but that is what is paid to tour guides. Do I go as low as that, or do I go to something that I was paid when I was a tour guide myself in another company that was better paid?
You want to start attracting really, really great talent. Okay.
Okay.
So you want people to really, you're going to invest time and effort in training them. So you don't want them jumping ship. You want your business to have the best conditions, like that people are knocking on the door. You're getting emails all the time. People are seeing your guides and like, how do I work for this company? That's what you want. What you do is super cool. The conditions are amazing. The support is next level. And so that's going to take a little investment. All right. So you want to make sure that you put, and also it's a great talking point. You're talking to agents and you're, in your outreach processes and in the tourism associations, we pay our guides and we look after them better than any company around. And like,
I don't think that's very difficult because the staff is hugely underpaid here. That's like,
well, it's a massive
that's a good talking point. That's a good talking
so when you're meeting an agent, so why are you different, Michael? Why should we invest put our trust and faith in you? Like, well, obviously there's great detail you go into in the actual experience that you run, but the staffing perspective, we only have elite, the best of the best. We pay them more and we look after them better than anyone else. We invest more training in them. And so you can be guaranteed that when you're working with us, that your guests are not only getting the most beautiful, curated, tailored experience, but they're also being looked after by elite guides. There are no better guides because we just offer the best conditions for them to work in here. Okay. That's ultimately what you want. So that's going to mean, it's a commitment initially because you're going to need to pay them more, but that's a really strong recommendation.
Okay.
How you going, Colin? Jump in. I didn't mean to cut you off. If there's anything else, jump in.
No, that was it. Thanks.
Okay, cool. What are the best ways to pay freelance guides? Check through QuickBooks. Well, they just invoice you. It would be my, that. Was anyone else? I mean, that was the way it worked for me. Like you have clear conditions and parameters and processes in place. So for example, our freelance guides submitted their invoice on the second Tuesday and the fourth Tuesday, whatever it is, every 2 weeks, I think is reasonable. You don't want to be paying invoices every week. A month, people might not want to wait that long for their money. Again, if anyone, Jim, you employ people, Mike, you do as well. Jump in if you've got any thoughts or any ideas or things or tips and suggestions. But for me, it's got to be consistent. You want to be having their invoices in, have a clear deadline that they're submitted. So you're not messing around with unnecessary admin. You're not paying your bookkeepers unnecessarily to take care of stuff. And what are you going to ask of people to accompany their invoice? For me, it's a bit outdated now, but we had a SurveyMonkey guide survey that they had to complete, that if they didn't complete and submit with their invoice, then we waited for that survey to be submitted. And that was just about what was happening on tour, things important things for us to collect, customer data, supplier information, what were they seeing out there on the ground, it wasn't long. It might have taken them 5 to 10 minutes every 2 weeks to submit that survey. So does that help, mate?
Yeah. No, I was just curious how other people did it. If like paying through Quickbooks helps you keep better track of it. I've never paid anybody. I usually just list the vendor or list my guides as payee accounts in my Bank of America account. They just cut a check, but it's a long turnaround time, and it's a matter of submitting it in Quickbooks.
You do not want to give people any motivation to go and work for someone else. Okay. Once you start investing time as a small owner in people, you want to be consistent. You want to get their money quickly. And again, the same with Micah. You want to offer the best conditions, because Colin, what you're doing is positioning yourself right at the pointy end of the market. Okay. You got $5,000 tours that you've been creating. All right. And so you are right at that. You're serving the very, very most discerning of discerning clients. Okay. So therefore you need to attract elite guides to work for you. Therefore you need to offer the best conditions, the best support, consistency. You don't want disgruntled people. You don't want the headache of like, hey man, you haven't paid me for 2 weeks. So it's got to be really easy, really consistent, and they've got to be able to access that, those funds quickly. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and actually going off of Micah's earlier that I kind of came in on, I just had lunch with a guide, somebody that I'm bringing on and will be doing a tour for me on Saturday. And, just talking with them, he's been working for other tour companies for a while. And I was, I had submitted my rate sheet for freelance guides to him.
Based off my example in the program.
Exactly. And it's just like, I want to make sure that you are getting paid better here than anybody anywhere else when you do work for me. Right now, I don't have the work. I'm sure you'd rather take 30 hours a week at $20 an hour than 5 hours a week at $30 an hour. But hopefully I get to that level where it's consistent. And he said, you're definitely at the upper end. And one thing I heard in a marketing podcast I had listened to recently is incentivizing guides, giving them bonuses, $20, $25, $50 for every 5-star review that came through. And another idea that I got from there that I want to implement is printing out a QR code that you can put in a visible place in the van, or the guides can present on an iPad or a laminated piece of paper at the end that the guests can immediately snap on their phones and will bring them to review pages. So
awesome. Anything like that, with just to get to streamline the process of collating reviews, 100%.
And
just one thing on that as well. When you're employing guys, you're in a place right now. Don't worry about it. You want to be getting people trained and getting them up to speed. And yes, you don't have to work for them at this point in time. You don't want to be saying that. It's like you get them excited. I'm in rebuild phase. I'm in launch phase. We've got some exciting plans. So there's opportunities right around the corner. Don't worry. And get, rather than, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm, still trying to figure out when the next booking. Forget about that. Get people excited. It spurs you on. It motivates you. It gives you that extra bit of motivation to drive forward and get these people into your business. So always talk really positively about what the outlook, the outlook is, all of the things that you're doing out there to really start planning for like the really short-term future. You're going to be loaded up and they're going to be up and running before they know it. Okay. And then you'll sit back and go, shit, I hope that's right. But that's the way you need to just, everything you say, the way you act, it's got to have that positive outlook, and it just permeates through everything. Think or talk, act, behave like that business you anticipate being in 3 months, 6 months, and 12 months. And it just permeates through everything. It really does. It just shifts that mindset, because as I say, it's like 90% mindset. Okay. 10% actual mechanics. All right. So that mindset is going to really, really serve you well. Okay. So, and don't, as I said to Micah, don't think about, who's going to want to do that? That's not going to suit people. It's perfect. People are like, oh my God, Colin, that's awesome, because the next 3 months I'm kind of a bit chewed up with a few things, but I'm so keen to hit the ground running in 3 months from now. That works out beautifully. Okay. So You figure out what you want, and what you need is elite people you can call on. They need to be trained. Okay. I had a regional information folder, which was literally turn left, drive 400 meters, take a right down, da, 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 da. Here's some commentary you might like to, it was that detailed. All right. And so with that was something I provided to all, like our regional information folder on all the regions. It took me hours and hours and hours in the early days of getting up and running, but it was so valuable. And obviously I was really big on, this is the foundation. You need to put your own spin on things. You need to give the tour your own voice. But as a fun, to get you up and running, so you're confident that you're delivering in a way that's structured in the way that we want, that is your foundation. That's your skeleton, whatever you want to call it. And then you inject your own expertise and personality and all those special touches that are all you, which is why I've employed you into the tour. Okay. So if it's in your head, get it out of your head and get it on paper. Just do one, set aside an hour, but just literally go blow, blah, blah. We pick up here, we drive 3 blocks to we take a left, we talk about blah, blah, blah. Here's some commentary on that thing. Then we pull over on the left side of the road. I know it sounds, but for you, it'll really help. Okay. So that would be a recommendation. And, it's a pain in the backside to get it out of your head, but it will serve you well. Next thing here, and this goes for a lot of you offering like a high level of service and gym and others with meals. You're offering meals. Someone could order the filet mignon. Someone else might just want an appetizer. Okay, so the way to do it, my experience, is budget something fair and reasonable that covers the filet mignon with a glass of wine. Doesn't cover the bottle of reserve in the back, like if they've got to pull out of the cellar. Okay. But if you budget fairly, let's say you're offering a private luxury tour and you've got 2 courses, so you feel reasonable offering 2 courses off the a la carte menu. We call it an entree and a main. You call it a starter and an entree, plus 2 glasses of wine. Assuming you've got Bill, the cigar smoking country club dude, he likes 2 courses, he likes 2 drinks. Okay, maybe you like a cocktail and then a glass of wine. All right, that's a little pricey. You may not even want to budget all of that. Okay, but if you just do something fair and reasonable, 2 courses, 2 glasses of wine, feel free to order what you like, guys. Couple of courses, couple of drinks, go wild. Okay, they're gonna, oh wow, that's nice. I don't want parameters around what I'm ordering. You're going to win eventually. Like, you might lose. Bill might order the 3rd cocktail, or he might order the dessert. Okay. And you might lose a little bit, but for every loss, you're going to have 5 wins when the wife, Mary, just wants a salad and a sparkling water. Okay. So that's my recommendation. Budget something nice and fair and reasonable. Okay. And you're going to win more than you lose. Does that make sense?
No, it did. And setting it up, like I had this tour group. It's like, oh yeah, and the meal's included. And they're like, well, can you just take the meal out, and we'll just order on our own and pay the server. And it's kind of like, well, yeah, I do that, and then I lose some of my margins on there. I lose some of the profitability of the tour.
Yeah.
But okay, and then I don't have to worry about it, and I don't have to worry about losing on that one.
Yeah.
When doing customized stuff, I just was wondering if you would offer that opportunity to be like, well, you know what, I'll just you settle up on your own, and we'll remove our house account from the situation, or if that was a hard line, like, no, it comes with the meal, and there's $75, accounted for everybody with food, drink, tax, and gratuity all involved. And whether you use that or not, that's in there. Or, draw that hard line, or be like, yeah, we're flexible. We could take that. We could take that cost out.
Exactly right. I think the vehicle question you've got next is a fairly long one. And I'm going to ask people in the room, first of all, that run, a similar type of experience to Colin, if they've got feedback or suggestions on A, types of vehicles that they feel work really well for luxury clients, B, vehicle financing. Ultimately, I'm not a guy who organizes finance. So what you need to do is find someone that can secure the finance for you. Okay. With vehicles, the first step for you possibly is to have access to, like, or know where you can find 5, 6, 10 suitable vehicles in your city, whether they're luxury car rentals, whether there's other operators that could lend, like could lease to you on a day rate, whether there are, you know, chauffeur companies that would allow you to put your driver in one of their vehicles. Basically, you've got to build relationships and figure out where you're going to get access to those vehicles on a needs basis. It's going to be more expensive, obviously, to do that than getting your own vehicles. But if you want to go slowly, ultimately, there's going to become a tipping point. There's going to come a tipping point, and it becomes a simple mathematical equation. Let's say, for example, Colin has a lot of success, which you are going to have over the next 3 months, and the sales are starting to come in, and you realize that on 2 or 3 days a week, you're actually having to get a second or sometimes even a third vehicle. And you sit back and you figure out the rates that you've created with those other drivers. You've negotiated day rates, and you look back in 3 months at your expenses for vehicles. Okay. All right. So then it becomes a simple mathematical equation. What's it going to cost me in insurance, in licensing, and in lease payments to bring on that vehicle? And ultimately, you're going to find that it's a hell of a lot cheaper to do that. But if you don't want that commitment straight up, you just need to know, because we've examined your pricing. What we didn't do in your pricing is add a buffer for vehicle rental. So that's just something you kind of need to take a hit on. But, you know, it's still going to mean your tours are very profitable. But ultimately, there's going to come a tipping point. It becomes a simple mathematical equation. You sit back, you digest your numbers, you look at your expenses for vehicle rental over a 3-month period or whatever it is. And then you look at what it's going to cost you to bring on that new vehicle. Okay. So I would be getting out there and first of all now and looking at equipment finance. You don't want to use the finance companies that through the dealerships because they sting you. You want to find someone through recommendations that can organize some really good affordable finance and has the right connections that can actually get you the finance. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I reached out to my banker today, you know, to talk about business auto loans, things like that.
Yeah.
I'm just curious if anybody in this group has tried to purchase a vehicle recently. I talked to the gentleman who runs the chauffeur company that I arranged my Sprinter vans and things like that through. He said he's paid Mercedes like 40 grand to place 3 orders on Sprinter vans, and they're not even going to arrive till 2023 because everybody's so backed up, and processing and chip production is so low due to COVID. So even if I got the financing, you know, how long would it take before I got a van? I was just curious, you know, Hive Mind, who's gone through that process recently.
Yeah. Has anyone out there got any feedback or anything that they might be able to tell Colin about their own personal experiences?
I investigated buying a bus not too long ago. In a couple of different locations, and I was looking at like just having a bus and holding on to it, and the parking and someone to drive it and the insurance and all that kind of stuff. And I think the amount of tours that I would need to run per year as the difference that the profit over the renting every week, it made it be like, if I was running every day, buying a bus made sense, but we were doing a bus tour once or twice a week and maybe on specialties and stuff like that, adding a couple extras. And there wasn't a profit for a couple years when it came to renting versus purchasing. And then also I'd have to figure out where to keep a bus in downtown Chicago. And that to me, was that was the deciding factor of the nightmare. It's too expensive to do something like that. And you could keep it out in the suburbs for a little, you know, so you can go to the suburban area and have a cheaper price and stuff like that. But then you're basically paying somebody all the time. Like who's watching the vehicle all the time. It just, unless if you're going to run every night, then probably purchasing is a good idea. But if you can make a deal with somebody local who's got a nice thing and you're like, okay, I know that I'm gonna give you regular business. Can you cut me a deal that you wouldn't cut anybody from the regular stuff? But if I can promise you every week for the year, can I get a special deal? And see, you know, those kind of things to save some money.
Yeah, exactly. So you need to be creative in your early days. But to play it safe, that's what you need to do. First of all, I had a network of like 20 or 30 different, fellow tour operators, chauffeur companies, luxury car rentals, places that I understood their processes, their systems, logistically how it would work, that I could call on. So I knew with confidence, even though my fleet of vehicles, I actually owned 4 vehicles. I had tour guides that had purchased their own and worked exclusively for me. I think that was about 4 or 5 as well, which was awesome. And then I had access to like probably 15 other vehicles that I could legitimately on any given day in the middle of summer in peak season send out like 20 to 25 individual private tours, knowing that I was really confident in the quality of the vehicles I was sending out. So that's ultimately what you need to do. Does that make sense? Cool. Now, I've just lost my, looking around for things there. Anything else on that, Colin? Any other questions? We'll move on.
Oh, I got a lot of questions, but we can move on. Well, we can come back.
Okay, cool.